It just doesn't make sense to me. The ones who were supposed to overtake him already did so on track, so why is there a need to penalize him further? Formula 1 is finally back after the April break, and so is rating each driver's performances. Remember, taking into account both qualifying and the race. And no, I'm not taking into account the sprint race, I don't really care much about them. So without further ado, let's go. The first DNF of the race is Isaac Hadja. He was disqualified from the qualifying session because his floorboard was too wide. Starting from the pit lane is not his fault, he obviously wasn't building that plank himself, but ending 8 tenths behind Verstappen is. And in the race, he brought the safety car in lap 5 after crashing all by himself, probably pushing a bit too much, trying to gain back some positions. I do support the idea of going all out, since you're starting so far back, you don't have basically anything to lose. But the execution also matters, and it's not as if he crashed trying an overtake, it was all on his own. A 2 is all I can give him. Pierre Gasly got into Q3, but by hundreds couldn't qualify higher than Colapinto. At the start, he went down to P12, and that's where he met his executioner, Liam Lawson, who locked up while trying to overtake him. Their wheels touched, and poor Gasly ended up rolling on his roof and against the wall. Kinda hard to give him a rating, but I guess I'll give him a 6, mainly because his qualifying was pretty good. Now, Liam Lawson, who also DNF thanks to that incident with Gasly, which was 100% his own fault. There's no way around it. His qualifying was pretty good, started in P11, while his teammate couldn't get out of Q1, but obviously that incident with Gasly is gonna cost him severely, and I'll give him a 4. Nico Hülkenberg ain't exactly known for being a lucky driver, and this weekend was no different in that regard. He couldn't finish the race thanks to a mechanical failure, and even during the sprint race, his car caught on fire before getting to the grid. The qualifying went pretty well for him, P11, which is all he could achieve since the Alpines seem faster than any other midfield team at the moment. In the race, however, he clipped his front wing against Carlos Sainz at the start, and after changing it, had the technical issue. The contact was his fault, and after it, he was never gonna be able to score points. So, for ruining his own race, which then and only then ended prematurely, he gets a 3. Valtteri Bottas was the first driver not to DNF today, and if I'm not wrong, is the first driver to be hit with the speeding on the pit lane penalty in the season. Correct me if I'm wrong. Not as if it cost him points, his pace wasn't good, even in comparison to Perez. The tire degradation was apparently too much for him. I'll give him a 5, thanks to the fact he out-qualified Perez, but I'm being generous here. Both Aston Martins managed to finish the race for the first time in the season. In P17 came Lance Stroll, who was pretty damn close to Fernando during qualifying, but in the race his pace wasn't as good. Finishing the race in that car has merit of his own, so it's a 6 for him. The Mexican driver qualified behind his teammate, but the race was a completely different story for him. He had almost the same pace as Fernando Alonso, stopped earlier for Haas, which was the optimal strategy. But when Alonso pitted later on for soft tires, he was faster and both met on track, and had a bit of a yo-yo battle. Still, Sergio Perez couldn't get past Alonso in the end, but his overall performance grants him a 7. Fernando Alonso was the winner of the battle Aston Martin and Cadillac seemed to have every Grand Prix. During qualifying, at least in Miami, there was no contest. Both Astons were almost 6 tenths faster, but in the race, Perez put him in some trouble. At the end, it was the Spaniard, the one who came up on top, and 8 for him. Arvid Lindblad was basically in no man's land during the whole race. Too slow to catch the guys in front of him, too fast for the guys behind. And Lindblad, in particular, probably wasn't even the fastest driver between the two, since Liam Lawson out-qualified him, getting into Q2, while Lindblad was out in Q1. He gets a 5. Now we start getting to the point where strategy, meaning the moment their team realized it was not going to rain, matters. In the case of Esteban Ocon, he stopped pretty late, and after that his pace wasn't good enough to keep Bortoleto behind him, and giving him a 6.5. Audi in general is struggling when it comes to reliability. Gabriel Bortoleto's brake caught on fire during Q1, so he had a monumental task to try to get into the points in the race, and being the second to last driver to stop didn't help him either. His pace was pretty decent and he got close to it, but at the end it was just a P12 for him. I'll give him an 8 for the effort. Oliver Berman was the standout driver during the first 2 races, and after seeing him reach such highs, his race in Miami probably doesn't feel as good as it really is. It feels like there are some teams who have made a step forwards in comparison to Haas, and that's part of the reason Berman couldn't get on the points today. It's a 7.5 for him. And amongst the teams who have made a step forwards is Williams. Impressive race for both the drivers, but Alex Albon was the slowest amongst the two. First driver not to be lapped, but his quali wasn't good. Knocked out as last in Q2, 4 tenths behind his teammate, and he couldn't beat Carlos Sainz during the race either, although it was a decent one for Albon, almost maximizing the potential of that car. I'll grant him a 7.5. And Carlos Sainz was the Williams driver who maximized the potential of his car, getting 2 points for the British team. He was better in qualifying than Albon, but where the pace of the Williams was really noticeable was during the race, 9th position, and I'm giving him a 9. Alright, Charles Leclerc, there's a lot to unpack here. Let's start by saying he got 3rd in qualifying and had a great start that made him lead the race for a few laps. So just for that, I'm not going to fail him. Now, onto his mistakes. He had 2. The first one doesn't that big of a deal, cost him just a few seconds. Let's just focus on the second one here. Breaking his suspension during the last lap cost him the podium and made him cross the line P6, which turned into P8 after a 20 seconds penalty. It just doesn't make sense to me. The ones who were supposed to overtake him already did so on track, so why is there a need to penalize him further? I mean, he was already punished by the wall. The words from the FIA are left the track on several occasions without a justifiable reason. But not being able to turn left is definitely a justifiable reason in my opinion. If you see his onboard, he only cuts turns to the left and the chicane, which he would have needed to turn left first to do. I'm not against him being penalized, but not for that reason. Where's the fucking consistency? Hamilton was given 5 seconds for almost the same reason at Singapore last year, and Hamilton was able to steer, so he had no justification apart from the fact he was going so slow. Taking the turns normally would have made him lose even more positions. So why would they give 5 seconds to Hamilton and 20 seconds to Leclerc? And if you're one of those saying the car ain't fit to race, so he should have just retired, actually get out of here. It's the last lap of the Grand Prix. He's a racing driver. Everyone should try to get to the end no matter what in that condition. It's the last lap of the race, for goodness sake. Just like Hamilton did on 3 wheels at Silverstone, and everyone applauded him for it. Anyways, Leclerc gets a 5 for bottling a podium. Moving on, Franco Colapinto was the only Alpine to finish the race, and these kind of performances are the ones who are going to keep him in Formula 1 for many years. He should try to pull them off more consistently. Qualified 8th, ended up 7th, best of the rest in both sessions, perfect weekend for him, so he gets a perfect score, 10. Now on to Lewis Hamilton, P6 on qualifying, far from his teammate, not tenths wise, but positions wise, and during the race his pace just wasn't good. With Ferrari drivers this weekend, it was a case of losing it all at the last second for Leclerc, or not even being fast enough to have a chance for Hamilton. Pick your own poison and giving the same score to both of them, 5. Seems like the updates worked for Max Verstappen, who impressively managed to get 2nd on qualifying. However, he spun on the first lap, ruining his chances of maybe even a victory. His comeback was decent, ending up P5, and I bet the light of hope has returned to the eyes of Red Bull fans worldwide, because it seems like with this car, Verstappen will be able to fight for wins, especially if the team gets the strategy right. They stopped him during the first safety car and left him out during 51 laps on Haas. They went gambling on Miami and didn't really pay off, but to be fair, they didn't lose much either, so he gets a 6 today. Another race without a podium for George Russell, who seems to be completely outmatched by Antonelli at the moment. In comparison to the Italian, Russell was nowhere. He could only qualify P5, 6 tenths behind Antonelli. That's just way too much difference. And in my opinion, there's no excuse for it. He needs to pick up his game immediately if he wants to even fight Antonelli for the championship. cannot give him more than a 6. I mean, Verstappen almost ends up ahead of him even after spinning on lap 1. It was a good race for Oscar Piastri, who managed to get into the podium again thanks to the incident for Leclerc in the last lap. However, it was a subpar qualifying session for him, 3/10 behind his teammate and even qualifying behind Lewis Hamilton. If it wasn't for that, he could have been able to even fight for the win, because McLaren definitely had the pace, 7.5 for him, heavily punished by the qualifying. Lando Norris had a decent start, which allowed him to be in a great position to use the pace of that car in Miami to take first position on lap 13. Right before the pit stops, it seemed like it was his race to lose, since surprisingly, Antonelli didn't have the pace to catch him after fighting with Charles Leclerc. Unfortunately for Lando, Mercedes outsmarted McLaren. After that, there was nothing the Brit could do to even put the Italian in trouble. He gets a 9.5. Who would have thought 4 races in, 3 victories for Antonelli? Managed to get a decentish start this time, just losing 1 position overall after starting on pole. And after the pit stops, he managed the race perfectly, even with the gearbox problem he reported. I'm going to give him a 9. Why, if Toto Wolff said it was his best race in Formula 1? Well, I think he fucked up at the beginning of the race when overtaking Leclerc for P2 and allowing Norris to pull away. If it wasn't for his team bailing him out, he would have lost the race right there and then to Norris. Credit where credit is due though, his in-lap and out-laps were perfect to make the strategy work. And I mean, a 9 is a great rating anyways. And that makes it 3 wins in a row for Andrea Kim Antonelli, who alongside Mercedes seems unstoppable. When the raw pace of the car isn't good enough, their strategy outshines the rest. In 2 weeks' time, we'll be able to see if someone is capable of knocking him out of the top step of the podium in Canada. See you all there. That's all for today. Thank you for watching the video. Let me know what you think about it in the comments down below, and you can also follow me on my social media. Until next time.